I think it's time that we took some time out and we really focused on this 300 kg deadlift. Like I said, I feel like I've been avoiding the final boss, and it's time. Show the world the first 5-time bodyweight deadlift.
Welcome back to Irish Strength, and we are on the verge of a gigantic competition that's happening tomorrow, Britain's Strongest Woman, and we're lucky enough to be joined by two-time World's Strongest Woman, Rhianon Lovelace. Thank you very much for joining me, Rhianon.
No problem. It's great to be here. Anything we can do to promote the sport is always a good thing.
And that's one thing that you've I think become famous for, is promoting the sport. Obviously, Chaos Promotions has competitions every 5 minutes. I see a competition coming up, which is great for the sport. You've obviously seen a huge progression, especially on the women's side of the sport. How excited is it that it's finally in a Giants live show as well?
Oh man, I mean, when I started, I had to do a lot of men's shows because there typically wasn't women's shows, or if there was, it was a women's class kind of lumped on to a men's show. Very kind of generic. It was very few and far between. The idea of something like Giants Live Women's at the time, I thought the closest I would ever get to Giants Live would be if Luke got his invite to the Deadlift Championships. So the idea that we are not only one of the first women, but one of the first lightweights to ever receive a Giants Live industry invite, it's a real, the littlest giant moment.
And I love the fact that you say you had to get lumped in with some of the men's shows earlier on, especially you competing at them. And to be honest, I think you've put quite a few men to shame competing against them. So, yeah.
It was it's been a little bit bizarre for me. So my mum was a semi-professional track athlete and runner. So I grew up with, my mum would regularly beat men. She would beat men pregnant. She would beat men just after childbirth. So this idea that a woman could stand physically as equal, if not slightly more dominant, I kind of grew up around this. And then when I went into MMA, I would fight a lot of the guys in training, a lot of the guys, my friends. So yeah, this idea of physically holding your own against men. So then when I came across to Strongwoman and was competing with men, I didn't realize at the time quite how bizarre it was to see such a little girl compete with these men and win a few events, really kind of be able to kick them in the shins a bit and draw a little bit of blood. But it was it was quite normal for me. It didn't seem weird.
Preparation for this competition, how has that gone for you?
It's been tough because of how much we've had going on. Obviously, we kind of just got back from Michigan, that heavyweight pro show. That was straight out of Europe's. That was straight out of PSL. And then obviously we had the 3 world records at the start of the year. So for the season, for me, I do it a little differently to a lot of the strong women. I don't tend to get show specific ready. I tend to get season ready and then play throughout. So almost similar to like what a rugby player would do, where they would get season fit and then play a variety of games across the season. Little bit more focus goes into Worlds because we have time, but the reality is I've been running yokes all year, I've been running logs all year, so we've just kind of got to put it together for obviously the heaviest show, one of the heaviest shows that's ever happened, but definitely the heaviest show that a lightweight's ever competed in.
And do you find it's becoming like that? We've seen it sort of in the men's sports especially, but I feel like it's happening in the women's as well, where there's so many shows that you can't really peak for one individual one. You have to do a season, like you're saying.
Aye, and it's getting to the point now that there's almost there's too much food available. You've got to be selective about what you put on your plate. Things like obviously the UKNS Worlds is now big, but you've got Pro Strongman League, you've got the Chaos Classic is now doing women's, you've got the Rainier Classic, the Shore Classic, Giants Live Nations. All of a sudden we actually have this huge appetite for these major women's pro shows that we have to be selective about which ones we do and even more selective about which ones we train for.
And I'm sort of guilty of this myself, where I compare sometimes the women's side to the men's, but it feels like we just do it naturally. However, the women's side has become just as popular, if not more popular. Like we're seeing that this weekend, where the women's show has actually sold more tickets than the men's. That's where we sort of want to be with the women's side of it, isn't it?
I mean, I think it's at the minute it's I don't want to say a gimmick, but people are loving actually realizing that these women can do crazy stuff. But I think a lot of it comes down to as well the fact that obviously I'm incredibly biased for the women, but there's typically more of a range of personalities amongst the women. This weekend alone, you've got your big giants like Rebecca Roberts, you've got your more kind of quiet and stoic girls like Kate, you've got your crazy bitches like Laura Baxter. It's a real kind of diverse collection of attitudes, personalities, aesthetics, that typically I don't think you get amongst the heavyweight men. I think there's a lot of beards, a lot of bold, a lot of big, heavy alpha male, and it's not quite has the same kind of if you're going to want to watch Big Brother, you're going to want to do it with a lot of conflicting personalities rather than a lot of the same kind of personality. So I think from an entertainment point of view like that, and the fact that I think the biggest versus the littlest this year is about 14-15 inches and about 100 kilos of body weight. So again, having that real range and spread, I just think it makes it a little bit more engaging.
But hold on, something you said there. What's wrong with bald and beards? What are you saying?
I'm gonna take myself out now.
I'll edit that out. It's fine. It's fine.
No, what I look. My mom comes to the shows and she's like, she loves a guy, and I'm like, which one? She's like the bald one with the beard. And I'm like, yeah, cheers, mom.
That narrows it down. Yeah, that takes one guy out of it. The rest of them, who knows? With the events that are coming up this weekend, obviously there's some real strong ones for you. The deadlift stands out, of course. The yoke is a very strong event for you. Is there tactics coming into play where you're looking at the events going, right, well, I've got a chance at winning that, but if I come top 3 in this other one, that's a really good result? What are the, I don't want you to give away your game plan, but what are the tactics?
Massively. I'm happy to give away game plan now. It's too late in the game. But effectively, this is where my Luke comes into play. This is kind of his job, so to speak, going into these big comps. He knows pretty much every high-level female athlete. He's like an encyclopedia. He can reel off what they've done, what they're good at, potentially where they're going to lose points. He knows a lot about people carrying injuries and things like that. So especially being my size, it's just tactics like there is 0 point chasing the leader in the log press. Even on my best day, I'm not going to outpress the likes of Becca Roberts. I know Annabelle's out of it now, but that kind of, there's no point potentially hurting my back and spending a load of calories there when we have things like the sandbags that I might not be the quickest to get them off the ground, but my foot speed is I'm confident with it. My sprinting with my running background is really good. So again, it's about cashing in your chips, make them bleed where you can, know which fights are yours, and just brace for the hits and the other ones.
And you mentioned there, pound for pound, like you're obviously the strongest woman in the world, but you're going up against people that are nearly 100 kg more. Like how difficult, but you're still getting very close to, like, the deadlift, you're right up there. How tough is it though when you are a lightweight athlete against the heavier athletes?
There are moments that it gets difficult to believe in yourself. It's usually just before we go out. I'm stood with all the girls, and I'm not even kind of like bra height. I'm kind of like towards belly button height. And I'm kind of stood here looking up at everybody like this. And that you do really have to kind of hold your ground. Remember who you are. Remember what you've done. Remember that size is only a limitation if you let it. But on events like the power stairs or things that are very, very height advantaged, it's frustrating. There's a couple of times this prep when I've been close to tears with it, because effectively my lower legs are just not tall enough. And I love work, I love progress, I love a challenge, but when you're against something that's, no amount of work is going to make me taller, I can't outwork that. That gets really frustrating. And again, it's just about stepping back, remembering who you are, changing it. If we need to do things a little differently because we are slightly outside of the box, then so be it. And very proud this prep that we have come up with a outside the box technique on these power stairs that I think is going to let me hold my own with the bigger skills.
Oh God, I feel like I have to ask, but you're probably going to go, no, you have to watch on the day.
I just I utilize my strengths. I utilize my erectors and my traps a little bit more to try and make up for that height. It's probably going to look a little bit weird, but at the end of the day, we've got a job to do, which is getting those steps, getting those implements on the steps. We did think about zerchering. I've got a massive zercher, but the implements, they don't let my arms get through. They're only about this bit of gap. So that idea went in the bin. And yeah, that was just me and Luke, probably 2, 3, 4 hours of just rep, changing things, tweaking things. But I'm really proud of where everything is.
And the hard side of it, and you were saying sometimes during the prep you were, getting emotional and stuff. Is that where Luke and the other supporting people around you, is that where they're really, really important, I imagine?
Massively. I always say when things are going well, your team is a bonus. But it's when you're starting to drown, when you start to wobble, that's when your team, they are your lifeboat, they are your backbone. So many times in my career, I have felt like the puppet that's on the front line, but really it's the people behind me that are pulling the strings. They're the ones that are keeping me upright, making sure that I have everything I need, and mainly that I know that I'm loved and supported, and that I can just go out and nail it.
One thing that you probably did that people will have noticed is you took a little bit of a gamble last weekend, in which you took 3 or 4 days to come up and help promote Natural Strongman World Finals, which obviously is a huge thing, and Chaos Strength have been really promoting it and getting behind it. How much damage did that do to your prep, or did you actually get training when you were up in Edinburgh?
No, I missed my last day's training to get the van packed because I was getting really nervous. It's been a hell of a September, to be honest. We had the world record, the deadlift world record, then we were straight into America, straight home, then over to Scotland for the UKNS. But I mean, like I said, it goes back to when I started and the lack of opportunities for women, for there now to be a competitive pathway for natural athletes, all natural athletes, every weight category, including the masters. We're big on not leaving anybody behind. We do teenage pathways, we do juniors pathways, masters pathways. And it was a really big moment in what we think is important for the sport. So yeah, it was a long weekend. We tried to keep the diet on track. We tried to rest as much as possible, but the reality is when you've got 7 athletes there, you're running the world's first natural world championships. I almost, I was joking about the fact that I was more nervous for the naturals than Giants Live. And but the reality is that Giants Live is going to be good. We know that it's already been amazing. The crew behind there are super experienced. They know what they're doing. Whereas trying to establish a natural pathway is obviously quite new. There's a lot of people that don't know if it has a spot, don't think it has a spot. So we knew that this was going to be the make or break. We were going to come away from this and have so much more interest globally, and it really take off, or it would be a case of this failed, it's dead in the water. So a lot went into last weekend for sure.
And I wouldn't consider giving one of the most experienced athletes in the world advice, but can I say one thing? This weekend, try not to lose your phone. You had
every day.
We nearly had to shut the competition down at the weekend. You had me looking for your phone. You had everyone out looking for it.
You know, that's pretty typical of me at a comp. I lose it. I'm wandering around, I'm updating people, I'm checking on athletes, I'm doing stories, and then I just see a shiny thing and I put it down and I'm off. And it's just and I'm everywhere as well. I'm like a bit of a headless chicken, so it could be balanced on the top of some random somewhere that I've just yeah, it's
I think you ended up finding it in the bottom of a box or something. I don't know where it was.
I need it on a leash, like a retractable thing or with a button on it.
Just to say, obviously, Chaos Strength were a huge sponsor for the Natural Strongman World Finals, and I don't think it could have happened without you guys, especially Luke bringing up a lot of equipment as well. You guys did a great promotion at that, where you gave 20% off. It was just for the competition, but you're actually doing it again this weekend. So you're giving everyone a second chance to actually avail of that 20%. And there's a discount code that they have to use as well. What's the?
It's the code is just Giants. So yeah, it's just celebrating. What we like to do is celebrate historic moments in the sport with, you know, I think if we're celebrating, you guys should get to celebrate with us. Let's put a massive discount on everything, and let's just try and use this to really propel the women's side of the sport, the event, and just try and get as much traction as possible.
Now, going back to Giants Live itself, how nervous do you actually get going in? Like, you've done so many competitions, but do you still get nervous? Does it butterflies in the stomach?
I feel I don't really get nervous about my performance. My performance is what it will be. We're carrying a couple of injuries, so a few events could go either way. But I don't think you won't see like tears over a bad performance with me. I'm quite able to swallow a bit of a hard pill. That didn't go well. Oh well, we'll bounce back. We'll come back fighting the next event. The thing that gets me is feeling the sense of duty for my class, for my gender, feeling that responsibility to promote as well. You know, I don't want people coming away from it thinking that, you know, 64-kilo strongmen are a nightmare, or they're drama queens, or they're unsupportive. I'm much more concerned about how it makes Strongwoman as a sport, how that itself is represented, rather than my individual performance, because like the reality is me and Kate are the first two lightweights to ever receive a Giants invite, and lightweight, it doesn't work together. So, you know, we are very, very honored to be given this opportunity, and I feel a lot of weight on my shoulders to represent, you know, the 64 girls, the pro girls. They're my best friends. They are my girls. They are wonderful, and to know that they will all be tuned in, they will all be behind us, and this is our opportunity to show the world what we can do. That's hard.
The lightweights, a lot of the time, there's a little bit of a misconception, I believe, in strongman as a whole, but especially with the women's side, where people are sitting at home and they sort of have this idea in their head that you have to be quite a heavier athlete to compete at the top level. But yourself, Kate, Chloe, Brennan, people like that are really changing that round and making it sort of accessible for possibly female athletes that don't want to put on a huge amount of sort of size, but realize, no, I actually don't have to. I can compete at the top level at the weight I am at.
Yep. I mean, the two biggest things that they say the body weight helps with is obviously the deadlift and the overhead press. It just came second in a heavyweight pro show in America in the overhead press, won the deadlift. And I mean, deadlift wise, we've had it. I think the closest we got was 2 kilos from the heavyweight world record, which is probably the percentage equivalent of an under 80s boy pulling around 495, something like that. That's like 496, just under 1% away. which, you know, it does. And I'm not alone, you know. Kira Rickson, incredible lightweight deadlifter. There's a number of Panda is approaching the 500-pound mark as well. There's a handful of, and they're just growing every year, of these lightweight women that, you know, we're 5'2", 5 foot tall. We're not crazy. We're 60 to 65 kilos in body weight. You know, I'm a size 5 shoe. We're normal. We're very average women's size. You know, I wear smalls. If I put a hoodie on, you don't even know I go to the gym. It's just breaking the mold that this idea that you need to be, you know, sometimes it really is about the fight in the dog.
The future. We'll move on to what's coming up for you next. What's the plans for, I know you haven't even finished this year, but what's the plans for next year? What is the plans for the rest of this year?
So for me this year, it's a hell of a season already. We won everything there was to win lightweights last year. We're on track to do that again this year. I want to return to Worlds and win my 3rd title. I want the back-to-back titles. It's looking like a good year. I've got strong events across the board. The girls are exceptional, but I've really got to fight for that. And then for me, I'm going to be, I feel like for a while now, this is the first time I've kind of come out with this, by the way, but I feel like I have been avoiding the final boss for a couple of years now. I feel like I've been doing side missions with these other world records. I love that, you know, other world records can be called side missions. You know, setting all these other world records and going to these big pro shows. But I think it's time that we took some time out and we really focused on this 300-kg deadlift. Like I said, I feel like I've been avoiding the final boss, and it's time. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take me away from the comps, but I'm ready to get my head down and show the world the first 5-time bodyweight deadlift.
I think everyone would love to see that. Like you say, I think we've seen it with people that are going for big deadlifts. It's the one move where you do have to focus so much effort on it. So it does pull you away from all of the other commitments. And you're not short of commitments already as it is. And I'm sure you'll be continuing to promote all these amazing competitions that you have been doing so far as well. Is there anything else for next year that's in the pipeline, or is that going to be pretty much your full focus?
As of right now, that's all I care about. That's the in terms of my training, my competing, even my social media, everything will just get focused towards this deadlift. Obviously, my job is my job. My businesses will continue. We will continue to run all the competitions that we do. We'll continue to be heavily a part of that. The clothing isn't going to go anywhere. In fact, we've got some really exciting things launching next year. But in terms of the comps, in terms of my training, my mental health, we're probably going to have to bring some therapy back in the game, because it is going to be buckle up, but it's going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's time, I think.
And I think at the start of the show, I was actually going to try and list out some of your accolades, but we would have been here all day. I believe it's 6 world records that you hold at the moment. I could be wrong on that.
So I think it's 19 world records in 6 different events.
Okay, I was nowhere near.
Don't worry, I have to recount them every now and then. I forget.
And then, of course, you've got all the other accolades that you have won as well. The UK Strongest Woman, all these different ones. Is there a favorite in there? Is it World's Strongest Woman, or is it the deadlift records that you broke before?
My 2 moments have got to be the winning my first Worlds. I didn't know the girls. I didn't really know the sport at this point. I'd only been doing it about 18 months. I didn't really know what to do. I just remember standing before every single event going, I just want to call my mum after this and tell her I didn't shit the bed. That's all I just want to tell her, that I gave it everything I had. and that's all I could do. Whether I won or lost, I threw it all out on the field, and I walked away from the 6 events having done that, really proud of myself. And Luke's like, Rhi, you won by a mile. It was like, when you bring what you have, it was like you won by a mile. And that realization that, you know, everybody's like, are you good enough? You know, am I good enough? It goes around the head a lot. And the realization that actually, if you fully commit to yourself and you bring everything that you have, you're more than good enough. You already were good enough. You just have to show it. That was an incredible realization. And I think probably my last deadlift world record, the one I did in Scotland, because that's my last one with my deadlift suit. And you're supposed to go through a number of deadlift suits in your career. You're supposed to change them every 2 to 3 years. This one has been my suit since day one. We learned together in it. It's disgusting. It's falling apart. It's got holes in it. The Velcro doesn't really work anymore. But me and that suit have a huge bond. I've learned everything I know in that suit. It's taken me from just some little girl with big dreams to undeniably the most decorated deadlifter in the sport. And that was my last world record in the suit. And it was an emotional day. I'm actually getting a little bit emotional thinking about it. I got it out of my bag, and I was just like, just one more dance. Just me and you, one last time. Let's just show the world that we can break multiple world records. And we made it look easy. It was a good way to go out.
It's amazing that suit lasted that long. Because
honestly, it is. We have a charger that's kind of the same, and it's just the indestructible charger. You can it is so past its sell by date, but it repeatedly kind of like my knees, but it repeatedly shows up and does what we need to do.
And has it literally just fallen apart now, or is that why it's been retired?
It's so ringing. It needs re-stitching. It needs re-velcro. Yeah, it's 7-8 years old, and it's broken the world record about 30 odd times. I think it's it's done its dues, that's for sure.
I feel like it needs to go into like a Giants Live museum or something. I feel like you need
people
to
talk about
sure.
selling it, and absolutely not. That thing is my baby. Yeah, it's single-handedly put 100 kilos on the world record for over 5, 6, maybe 7 years. And yeah, that suit, nobody uses that suit. Nobody touches that suit. It's my baby. It's going to get put in a frame and buried alongside my body when the time comes.
You say single-handedly it's put 100k. I think you had something to do with it. It was maybe 5%.
Definitely all the suit. Listen to the haters on the internet. It's all the suit.
The one last thing I would to touch on with you is, you've obviously mentioned a few times about the sort of mental side of it and the headspace. How difficult is it to be at the top level for mental health, and how much is it important to get that outside influence? So the therapy that you mentioned before, the supporting network as well, how important is that?
Oh, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, I kind of have people like to say a lot that, you know, I'm very supportive of other athletes, of other strong women. The reality is that even if I don't like the person, I respect what they have gone through to get to this level, because the reality is that the world doesn't like strong women, especially strong little women, especially strong young women. So to already have stuck the middle finger up to society, have had that backbone to stand there and say, no, this is what I want to do. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you feel. This is what I want for my life. I respect that. Every strong woman that goes to the field has already earned my respect, because the mental health thing is so hard. The hardest thing, the heaviest thing we carry in this game is nothing to do with the weights. It's having that ability to put your bad days in the bin, turn up the next day, having the resilience to swallow your demons, to get back up, to keep trying, As I mentioned before, my biggest rivals, my 64 pros, are some of my closest friends, because of all the women in the world that know what it feels like, they are the closest I have. You know, those are the women that fight alongside me. They know what the pain feels like. They know what the wins feel like. And to have those women that, you know, we're all struggling. We're all trying to find our way. We're all trying to be a good person and find our mark in the sport. And to have other strong women that we can lean on and do that with. To have my team. You know, some of them, I appreciate they don't fully understand what it feels like, but their support, the fact they very open about how much they love me and how much they will be for me regardless. It's been, I've matured an awful lot in the last 10 years. I've become a lot more aware of my emotions, a lot more in control of my emotions, and a lot more open about my demons, what triggers them, what causes them, because ultimately when we're out there on the field, we've only got ourselves. You know, it's you and the weight. So if you don't have the tools to control yourself, control your emotions, and to control your mindset, the weights are going to kick your ass.
There's always, unfortunately, in the world we live in today, there is always a host of people online ready to bash you if something doesn't go well. So like you say, it's important to focus on the positive people that are around. And I think for someone like yourself, for the other athletes that are competing at maybe lower levels, for someone like you to be so supportive of them is hugely important for them.
Well, the way I think, you know, and I did experience this coming up the ranks as well. You know, there was one, without going too much into it, I actually went to a big comp because I wanted to meet this one idol that I adored. I knew everything. I probably knew more about her life than she did. And I'm sat behind her and sitting, and I'm all, you know, I've got my little selfie thing out, trying to show my friends that she's there. And somebody asked her, you know, what do you think of that new Lovelace girl? And in 3 seconds, she just went, she won't be anything. And it's making my voice go, thinking it ruined me. I went outside, I was crying, telling my mom I just want to come home. And I thought, in that 3 seconds, you had the power to be the reason that somebody fights for the rest of their career, or the reason that they quit. And that was, you know, in that moment, I was like, if you ever make it, if you ever get to the top, you're not going to be like this. You're going to take, and the 2 seconds, that's all it takes, you know, go out of your way. Congratulations, well done. You did awesome. Or that was really impressive. You know, just what is literally 2 seconds can be the reason that they get back up and they try. And you don't know what's going on in somebody's head. You know, you don't know the things they're dealing with in the background or where they've come from. So just taking that, you know, I try and do it a lot on social media as well. It's 3 seconds to comment something nice, to show some support. It really doesn't cost a lot. And it can make such a big impact on the athletes coming through. And you know what? If it makes no impact at all, it's been 3 seconds and you said something nice. You know, there's no, and that's why I like to be on the ground at places like UKNS, to show them that, you know, even though I don't compete in the natural side of things, I am still here. I am still supporting you. We're still here ready to put you on the pedestal that you deserve. And it can mean a lot to the athletes.
And even from my own experience, going back to when I started Irish Strength, and I hounded you at different times. I always tagged you in different competitions, the smaller competitions that I would do in live streaming. And every time you'd go, yeah, no problem. And you'd be sharing it on your story and genuinely helping out, even though I'd never said 2 words to you in actual person. So I can definitely sort of say that you are so supportive, and it helps so much as well.
Like I said, you know, it's very, very little effort. And the way I see it, if somebody's pushing in the same direction as me with the sport, then they get my support, you know, be it the other side of the world, be it with some random comp that I've never heard of. If what they're doing is good for the support, good for the sport, and anything I can give can help that, then I don't see why not.
Thank you very much. I know you've got a crazy day ahead of you. You have the athletes meeting later on this evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to actually have a chat with us. For everybody else, please subscribe to the channel. Please keep supporting. And I think from everyone that's watching this, a huge hope that you'll do really well this weekend. I think you will. I think you'll surprise a lot of people. But yeah, we're looking forward to actually seeing it.
Much appreciated. No, I appreciate you having me on here and doing everything to promote the women.
Thanks very much, Rhiannon, and
no problem.
Chat to you later.
See you soon, guys.